Hey guys, Rachel Alvarado here with Rachel Alvarado Nutrition, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to manage cravings. I know, it's a big one, super important. So I'm so excited to jump into it, but before I do, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you know when I post more videos just like this one. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so managing cravings when you're dieting, or rather, I would have you manage cravings as you're making lifestyle changes. If you follow me, you know that I'm not a big fan of dieting. I think anything fad diet or temporarily giving up something is not going to give you long-term success. Long-term success happens with lifestyle changes. And so when I work with my clients, they have such great success when they are able to make all little lifestyle steps and it turns into this big lifestyle overhaul and they are able to lose weight and keep it off. But while they're doing that, they do have to manage cravings at first. So I want to delve into that and give you 5 tips on how to manage those cravings so that you can have long-term success and find this food freedom where you are in control, not the food. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about cravings. Now, cravings are challenging. I like to tell my clients that cravings are kind of like waves. The waves are going to be high and frequent at first. The waves are going to come in quickly and they're going to be big waves, so they're going to be harder to ride out at first. But when you stick with it for a week or 2 or 3, everyone's different, but when you stick with it for a little bit of time, those waves get much, much smaller and they become less and less frequent. And now, sometimes I'll have an occasional food craving, but it's almost laughable because it's so minor and it'll be sometimes years between them. It gets so much easier, guys. So much easier. So hang in there. Now, tip number 1 for managing cravings: separating yourself from the part that is craving it. So what I mean by this is, here you are wanting to make these changes, these lifestyle changes. You look at the reasons why you want to maybe lose weight, just get healthier, eat healthier foods, and you're like, I want to have more energy, I want to feel better, I want to help prevent some of these chronic diseases that happen later in life. You want to make sure that you're around longer for your kids or your grandkids. So there's all of these things that you want to do. But then there's this food gremlin that comes in, and the food gremlin is like, no, eat the Doritos, eat them now. And that can be really hard to deal with, this food gremlin. But if you can remember that it's a food gremlin and not actually you, it makes it so much easier to manage those cravings and ride past them, because you can just repeat to yourself, I don't want this, it's just my gremlin. It's just my gremlin. I don't want this, it's just my gremlin. I know. Repeat it, but these waves, they can last anywhere from, a couple minutes to 15 minutes to an hour sometimes, but usually not quite that long, but they can. And so remove yourself from the situation and remind yourself this is the food gremlin. But being able to just simply separate yourself from these cravings is really powerful, and it gives you power because you realize that it's not you that wants it, it's the gremlin. And also remind yourself when you are faced with some of these cravings that food gremlin is only going to have strength if you feed it. So the more you deny that food gremlin, the less and less power the food gremlin has over you. So remember, it's not you that wants it, it's the food gremlin. And if you don't indulge the food gremlin, it won't have power. Okay, so tip number 2, plan your meals. Now, some people like to do this a week in advance, which is really great. And I recommend kind of doing it a week in advance, maybe making some soups or some dishes that you can have and making sure that you have healthy food in the house. But the night before, plan out your meals. Are you going out to eat somewhere? If so, look up the restaurant, look at the menu, find what you're going to have and make a plan of it. So make a plan for your breakfast, make a plan for your lunch, make a plan for your dinner, and have like a rough idea of when you're going to be having those. You know, it doesn't have to be that exact time, but give yourself like a time range and then commit to those meals. That is what you're going to have. So if you get a craving, you know, okay, I already have this meal commitment. Maybe I can add that in at another time for one of my indulgences later this week. But right now, I have my food, I'm committed to it, and I'm going to stick with this. It also helps fight any sort of like cravings to snack, because when you snack, you're not going to be as hungry for your meal that's coming up. And when you're not as hungry for your meal coming up, it's not as enjoyable. Scientists have confirmed that when we are hungry, we are able to enjoy our food that much more. So when you snack, you're taking joy away from your meal. So you're not going to be able to enjoy your meal as much if you're snacking. So if you have this food commitment, you know that's what you're going to eat. If something pops in your head and you're like, oh my goodness, that sounds really good, you can tell yourself that you can have that at a later time, and then you can plan on that for another day. But a lot of times when you go to plan it for a later day, that urge isn't there anymore. You don't feel like indulging in that. So now you have the power. You didn't feel like you were depriving yourself, but then you are also bringing more joy to your meals because you were avoiding snacking or indulging in any cravings of snack food so that you were properly hungry for your meal and could better enjoy it. Okay, so plan those meals. Okay, so tip number 3, love boundaries. Okay, so I call these love boundaries because a lot of times we struggle with diets when we're like, we can't have this. And you know, if you follow any of my other videos, that I'm against like these ultimatums that we give ourselves. If we say like, I can't have sugar ever again, then all we are is going to want sugar. And then if we have one cookie, to us, the expectation was no sugar. So 1 cookie or 10 cookies equals still too much added sugar. So what's the difference, right? Wrong. There's a huge difference between 1 cookie and 10 cookies, obviously. But when we set up these ultimatums, it's really challenging. However, we want to set up something that I like to call love boundaries, which allow for some room to indulge in certain foods that we enjoy, but takes the pressure off of it so that we're not going to fall victim and spiral out of control if we do have a food that's more indulgent from time to time. So with love boundaries, you're going to want to make a specific plan on how frequently you're going to have something. Now, these are going to vary for person to person, from food item to food item. So these really need to be tailored to you. But here's an example of a love boundaries. I had a client who loved ice cream, and she wanted ice cream every single night. It was her thing, it was her comfort thing. She loves ice cream. So telling her don't eat any more ice cream didn't work, because if you said don't eat ice cream, then all she wanted was ice cream, and then she just wanted to focus on it. So we created a love boundary of only having ice cream out of the house. She could have ice cream as frequently as she wanted, but she could never have it in the house. So if she got this urge to have ice cream, she would have to put on her coat and her shoes, grab her keys, go out the door, drive to the ice cream place, eat the ice cream there, come back. And so by the time you get your coat and shoes on, a lot of times that like immediate urge to have ice cream was already gone. So it wasn't really worth the effort. It was never in the house, so she was never able to just like have it right then. So she had this love boundary that was self-limiting in the amount of ice cream she could have, but never in a way that made her feel deprived, because she could always put on her shoes and coat and leave and go get ice cream. That was always an option available to her, but it made the ice cream less appealing when it wasn't there to immediately satisfy the craving. So create love boundaries for yourself. You can play around with it and customize them to something that works for you. All right, guys, so tip number 4, keep your blood sugar as stable as possible. Watching what you eat. Well, I know this seems kind of bizarre and obvious, because watching what you eat is what you're trying to do when you're avoiding cravings. However, be careful, because if you are just trying to give up just added sugar, be aware that bread, white pasta, crackers, that can all act like sugar in the body that can raise your blood sugar, which then will have it drop really quick. And that's going to lead you to wanting to munch and snack because you're going to have a physiological response. Also, any highly processed foods are going to be engineered to be addictive. Most of them are. And so they're like these high palpable foods, you know, the high fat, the high sodium, anything that acts like sugar in the body. So actual sugar, or again, the white refined grains, that all acts like sugar in the body. It really messes with our body chemistry and it makes us want to snack more. So when we eat those foods, it's harder to say no to them. So being aware that if we are going to be eating bread in the morning or the afternoon, then that is going to increase our chances of wanting to eat like a sugary dessert at night. So being very careful of that and how that responds to our body. Now, if you are going to end up having something that acts like sugar in the body, so either white bread or a cookie or some sort of added sugar as like an indulgence, because we all indulge every once in a while. So if you're going to have an indulgence like that, make sure you have it as part of a meal. You want to have it with some protein and some fiber, because the protein and fiber is going to blunt the absorption of the sugar into your blood, which means you're not going to get a big insulin spike, which means you're not going to then have a big drop, and you're not going to be as likely to be wanting to snack as much later. So be aware of that. Be careful of raising your blood sugar and try to keep it as even as possible. Also, eating just really high fibrous foods with your meals, with every single meal, is not just good for your body, but it's good at helping prevent cravings as well, because they're so good at balancing out your blood sugar. All right, so tip number 5, create a mantra. All right, so mantras can be so helpful. So find a mantra that works for you, keep it in your back pocket, and pull it out and use it whenever you need it. So if all of a sudden you are faced with temptation, one of those waves are coming in, have a mantra that you can use. So one of it could be, a mantra that would work would be, I deserve to feel well. I deserve to feel good in my body. And you can just repeat it over and over to yourself and remind yourself that you do deserve to feel well, that you do deserve to feel good in your body. And repeat it until that wave has died down. You know, write it out and just repeat it to yourself. But having these mantras that you can repeat to yourself and remind yourself can be so helpful in the moment. So before you are faced with a craving, go ahead, come up with some mantras that work for you. Again, I love the one that I deserve to be well, I deserve to feel good, I deserve to age well. Those are some mantras that I love. Find what works for you and use it whenever you need it. And you can start using it even if you think you're going to be getting a craving. So if you are having to go to the grocery store and you're going to have to go down an aisle where there's something that tempts you, or you're going past the bakery, or if you're driving in your car and you're going to have to pass your favorite, restaurant or something like your fast food place, go ahead and start repeating that mantra before you are faced with it and anticipating it. Go ahead and start repeating it. So I hope these tips help you manage your cravings. And if you would like more help or support, you can find me over at rachelalvaradonutrition.com, and you can fill out a form for a free 20-minute consultation. You can also download my free 3 keys to sustain weight loss, where I go over my 3 keys that will help you with lasting weight loss and give you actionable steps that you can take right now to get your journey started. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.